The other general point I want to make is this, that we opposed the invasion of Afghanistan in 2001 on the grounds that it was ridiculous, it was wholly irrational, and was probably motivated by other interests. Of course what happened in New York on September the 11th, 2001 was disgusting, just as much as what happened in Chile on September the 11th, 1973 was disgusting and was a coup against the people. But the invasion of Afghanistan had no logic to it whatsoever, other than an assertion of the power of the United States to go wherever it wished, to do whatever it wanted to, followed by Bush in his ultimate days of his megalomania with the Axis of Evil speech a few months later at the the State of the Union address that he made, and then the Axis of Evil brought in with it the war on terror and our involvement in it. So what have we done? We've invested millions, nay billions, in the war in Afghanistan. It's cost the lives of a very large number of British service people, also service people of other countries, and the lives of tens of thousands of ordinary Afghan civilians. 10 years on in this war, more than twice the length of the Second World War, as long as the First and Second World Wars put together. And the generals say, well, we need a bit more time in order to train the new Afghan army. We need a bit more time to deal with corruption. We need a bit more time to deal with the economic development of the country. What a load of tosh. What an absolute load of tosh. They've had 10 years to train an army. I mean, in the Second World War, armies were trained in 3 months because there was a will to do it. There isn't a will to do it in the case of Afghanistan. What you have is a deeply corrupt government. What you have is an utterly unreliable Afghan army so far as that government is concerned. What you have is a massive drugs trade. But what you get far less publicity about is what you have is a whole series of deals being made about the vast mineral resources that exist in Afghanistan and the strategic importance of the pipeline, as John pointed out. And those deals are now being signed for the mineral exploitation of Afghanistan. The knowledge of the potential of mineral resources in Afghanistan is not new. Even the Russian Imperial Army in 1895 recognized the strategic importance of Afghanistan to the mineral needs of Russia in the future. That, I believe, is one of the motives that were there. But the offshoot of all this is a war in Pakistan, is the use of drone attacks, is the attack on civil liberties in this country, and is the development of Islamophobia and a whole sort of phobia about the Muslim world and a whole phobia about different cultures and different societies. So, where does that take us to? Further down the line, there's a decision that we have to invade Libya because of the threat to people in Benghazi by the forces loyal to Colonel Gaddafi. The attack on Benghazi didn't actually happen, by the way. Instead of there being any kind of political or diplomatic solution to what was happening in Libya, it didn't take place because Sarkozy, Cameron, and to a lesser extent Obama were more interested in getting a resolution through the UN that authorized some kind of military intervention. This military intervention therefore undermined any efforts of bringing about a political solution. Why should the forces in Benghazi be interested in any kind of dialogue with Colonel Gaddafi if all they're being offered is guns, weapons, money, and the possibility of doing oil deals through Qatar or anybody else in the very near future? There was never any attempt to get any kind of political solution in Libya. The agenda was always about intervention. The agenda was always about oil exploitation, about minerals and resources. And as John has pointed out, we now have this macabre image of the world's arms companies are sending out high-quality, high-grade CDs on the effectiveness of bunker-busting equipment, of planes, of helicopters, of weapons, and all this. And William Hague still comes to Parliament once a week and tells us it's all in line with the UN resolution. Ours is a humanitarian intervention in order to bring about peace. Well, 5 5,000 sorties in the first 3 weeks doesn't sound to me like a very humanitarian intervention, when 4,500 of them dropped bombs, which have killed people, which have destroyed buildings, which will continue to destroy buildings, and the support given to the opposition in Benghazi. Who exactly are the opposition in Benghazi? I don't know. They make very liberal-sounding statements. Some of them do, others don't. Goodness knows what's going on. Is this not a repeat of Afghanistan 1979, when all that money was invested in what then turned out to be the Taliban, which was thought to be a very good idea in 1979 and 1980. A few years later, we went to war against them. But, and I'll conclude with this thought, what really gets me is the hypocrisy surrounding it. Blair was happy to do deals with Gaddafi over oil, over business, over trade, and indeed up until March of this year we were selling arms, anti-personnel arms, riot control equipment to the Gaddafi government. We are now giving arms to the opposition to fight the other side, who've also got British arms. So it's a British affair. There's arms on both sides. So they can interchange the rifles, interchange everything, because all the parts fit each other. How disgusting. What we're doing is supplying arms that are going to kill large numbers of people when we should be investing in promoting some kind of political, diplomatic and peaceful result to this. But we're not going to intervene in Bahrain because there's too much money involved in there. We're certainly not, under any circumstances whatsoever, going to intervene in Saudi Arabia, despite having the worst human rights record of any country in the whole of that region in every respect. To observe what's going on, the hypocrisy that goes with it, and also the way in which the Arab League, which will probably develop into a far more radical organisation and begin to resemble the thirst for freedom, for liberty, for identity of the Arab revolutions of the late 40s, 1950s, up until the 1960s. It's going to change radically, because whatever comes out of the governments in Egypt and Tunisia, it's going to be different from what it was before. And obviously there's a whole issue being played out there. So what are the West doing? Promoting the extension of the Gulf Cooperation Council, the College of Kings, because that's all it is. And by some strange stretch of geography, well, I suppose it's logical really, if NATO can be involved in Afghanistan, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization can be involved in Afghanistan, then why can't the Gulf Cooperation Council include Morocco, which has mainly an Atlantic seaboard? I mean, it's all linked up, it's all water, isn't it? So it's okay in that sense. And so the seeds of the wars of tomorrow are being laid today in the interference in the political structures of the region. Our job, surely, is to promote peace, is to promote the liberation of people from poverty, from human rights abuses, from oppression. But people achieve the liberation themselves. They don't achieve it at the end of NATO bombs, high-level strafing of civilian targets, or the theft and grabbing of natural resources, because that is what this whole series of these wars is about. The Stop the War Coalition was founded to oppose the war in Afghanistan, and we have, I think, provided a helpful, intelligent and sane voice for a more rational world, for a world based on peace and justice, not the grabbing and theft of natural resources or the denial of civil liberties in our country or any other. That's why it's important to stay together. That's why it's important to challenge those that think the future of this country is militarization of our society, is spending more and more of our resources on weapons of mass destruction, new weapons of mass destruction through Trident replacement, and at the same time denying our young people the chance to go to college, the chance to go to university, everyone to have free health service. There is a choice, and I think we're making the wrong choices in our society. Stick with it, stand for peace, stand for justice. Thank you very much.